Hey guys, welcome to part one of the Bullet 500 restoration. I'm basically going to tear this thing apart and then put it back together. And will it start when I'm done? Well, I'd like to think so. It's not a complex bike by modern standards, so I think we've got a good shot at getting this thing back on the road and looking like new. My goal is not only to restore the bike, but show you every step of the way. So if you want to work on your own, this can act as a reference. I've got a shop manual for the bike, actually two shop manuals, but I always like to watch videos if they exist. In my opinion, there's nothing better than actually watching someone do it first. In this first round, I'm going to remove the seat, drain and remove the gas tank, take off the exhaust, drain the oil and check for metal particles, and drain the transmission oil while I'm at it. I'll wait until I remove the primary cover later to drain that oil. Basically what I'm doing now is just getting this thing ready to remove the top end. Also, I'm working in this garage and specifically in this space. So unfortunately, I can't leave everything and come back to it later. I've got to bring everything back up and then bring it down the next day. So what I'm doing is I'm just using a bunch of containers and just using that to bring stuff up and bring tools down, but it works. I got this seat from Hitchcock's and it really fits the bike. Really like the look of it. I'm not really into Springer seats on bikes that also have a rear suspension. If I get one, I want it for a hardtail. But I know a lot of people like it, and it's a traditional look. But this one, I just really like the look of this one. And getting it off is really easy. It's just a matter of a bolt here and then the same one on the other side. There's a little tongue that goes under a groove here in the front. I'll show you that. And the same thing on the other side. Then it just slides right out. So this seat has a tongue that just slips under this groove here. Makes it very easy. Some seats have a bolt though that go through this hole. And the problem with that is on this bike and other bikes, the wiring harness goes right under it. So if you put the bolt on there, it's going to hit the harness and just tear it. So you've got to cut the bolt. And on some seats, you actually have to take the seat apart, get the bolt out and put it on first. And it's not really hard. It's doable, but it's some extra work. So just something to think about if you have a bike with a harness that goes under. I also got this cover that just makes things a little bit neater. There's some wires and stuff underneath. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it. It just kind of comes right off. You can see it's kind of ugly under there, but my concern is that it's trapping some of the heat that needs to escape. So if I can clean this up a little bit, I might not use it, but we'll see. The next step is unhooking the battery, and that's just a matter of turning the key here, taking off the cover, and then unscrewing the two leads. Now I'm going to take the battery out. It's just kind of in the way. I've got to get this little tube out here, and it should have a little clip on it, but instead it's got a zip tie, which is kind of how this bike goes. There's just a lot of weird things on it from prior owners. Just going to use a screwdriver and just sort of pry this thing up because I can't take the clip off because I don't want to tear the hose trying to cut off this zip tie. It's coming. And there it goes. Draining the tank is really easy. It's literally just a matter of putting this hose in a bottle and then turning the petcock, which is basically just a miniature spigot. So just turn it up and it'll start filling up the bottle. This isn't all of it. I probably have about a half gallon more in there, but it drains kind of slow. So I'm just going to take the tank off and I'll prop it up later and drain out the rest. But gas is like liquid gold right now, so this thing is going into a car. And in it goes. The tank is very easy to take off. You have to undo that bolt there, and then one in the back right there, and it just comes right off. Because of the carburetor, it's easier to get the bolt out on the left side. Lifts right off. So the exhaust is next, and we're going to start with the slip-on, which is just held on with this bracket right here. And all we've got to do is just take off the bolt right there and just hold the back of it while we do it. Before I take the bolt out, I'm going to loosen the clamp between the slip-on and the header pipe. So the header is held on in two places. Got a bolt right there in the front and then right here in the back. The problem with this one is I can't just undo that nut and then push the bolt down so that this will slide out, because if you go on the other side, it's right up against the case. So what I have to do is remove the foot peg right there. So then once I loosen this, it'll kind of pivot, so this will come out, and then I can then push this out and then bring the whole thing off the bike. Of course, the exhaust is in the way here, but I got it. So it's weird not having any kind of clamp between the header pipe and the head, but all you got to do is just kind of pull it out. And it just comes right off. I'm going to be replacing this with a new exhaust from Hitchcock, so I'll leave the foot peg off until I put the new exhaust on. So the next step is draining the oil. And I gotta say, if you have dogs and you have pee pads, they're the best thing to use for this. I mean, they catch everything, nothing, everything just absorbs. I used to use newspaper and oil would sometimes get through it. So if you have these, it's my weapon of choice. So unlike most bikes, this has 3 drain plugs. Some even have 4. This one has 3. So you got that one right there in the front, and that middle one, and then that one in the back. And I'm going to do my best to film this. I'm going to kind of back the camera out. It's going to be hard to really get under here, but I'm going to start with this first one, then go to the third one, then do the second one. I'm also going to catch some oil in this plastic container. It's just going to help me check for metal particles. I don't expect a lot of oil to come out of this first one. But we'll see. Also has a little filtering screen on it. So I lied. I'm doing the second one second. Sucker was on there. There's another filter screen. So it looks good so far. I'm not really seeing any metal in here. I can't tell if that's kind of like a fine powder right there. It's hard to see. It's a reflection, but kind of right there. I'm not sure if that's metal or not. I don't think it is. It might just be kind of a residue from this plastic container. But that's all I'm seeing right there. And you have sort of this dark glob. But that's nothing. And those are bubbles right there. That's not metal. Now for the last one. So I'm not seeing metal in the oil, and these screens are also clean, so I think I'm good as far as that's concerned. Also, I usually clean these screens off with either like a chain cleaner that's safe for O-rings or a carb cleaner. But because I'm not filling the bike back up with oil, I think the best thing is just to keep these covered in oil, just to kind of help preserve them. Then when I'm ready to fill it back up, I'll take them out and clean them off. I'm telling you guys, pee pads are the best. So the oil filter is just kind of looks almost like a cotton element that goes into this little chamber here. So I'll take that out next. I'm not going to replace it now, and this thing is kind of finicky. It's not really in the best condition. Plus, I might replace this entire timing cover because I feel like the oil pumps that are in this little second chamber aren't sealing properly. So, and these are easy enough to find. They're cheap enough. So this cover might be completely changed. So that'll replace this as well. So the only way to get this thing out is to actually take the entire assembly apart. So again, this thing is just not in the best of shape. So it's coming, but it's not really, this isn't the optimal way to do it. So that shouldn't have had to come out, but it is what it is. And there's the filter. So again, I'm more than likely going to replace this cover. So for now, I'm just going to leave this open. Doesn't really matter. And if I do keep the cover, I'll just get a new filter assembly anyway. So either way, it's fine. So the last thing I'm going to do is drain the transmission oil. And the plug is right there. It's kind of in an awkward place just because it's hard to get a pan under it. So what I'm going to do is use the plastic containers to catch it from here. So I wrapped some plastic around the brake lever and center stand because this might make a little mess. It's just where this bolt is. It's kind of right over it. I got my little container here to try to catch it. I got to admit, that went well. That went better than I expected. So the oil in here isn't even that old, but I'm going to change all the fluids anyway, so might as well just drain it now while I've got the oil pan out. So I'm going to let the transmission oil finish draining. It's still dripping a little bit. But this pretty much wraps up part one of the restoration. In part two, I'll be removing the carburetor, the head, the barrel, and then I'll check the crankshaft, and hopefully that's okay. If it's not, I'll have to crack open the crankcase, and if I do that, I'll replace all the bearings inside. I'll also replace a crankshaft. I've sourced one, so we'll just see how that goes. But thanks again for watching. Please like the video, and if you're new here, definitely subscribe and stick around. It's going to be a fun restoration. We're just getting started. I'll also be reviewing my Continental GT650. I meant to have this earlier, but the weather in LA just has not been cooperating. And a whole new set of storms are on the way, so this will be out soon as well. And this one is also coming soon. Walking the mean streets of LA. I put this dog on a dyno. He's 10 horsepower. Check it out. Vespa.